Hey y'all, Caleb here. In today's video, we're going to extend the PowerShell script we wrote in the last video to work for Azure Active Directory users. Also realized in the last video, I took up a lot of time typing in the parameters and going through all those steps. So in this video, I already have it ready to go with all the backticks where they belong. And we're just going to step through it so you can see how I've set it up to work within the organization I'm working for. So there's one addition up here, and that is the username of the Azure Active Directory user that's going to be using the VM. It can be more than one depending on the type of image you're using. But in our case, we have one person per VM. And when creating the VM, we added this assign identity parameter, which will actually be used when we're doing role assignment. Other than that, the creation of the VM is the same. And again, we're opening port 3389. The rest of this is going to be new. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a role assignment. I'm going to have a link to all the reference documentation. But what this basically does is this assigns the role of contributor using this query. Showing you the assignee. So inside of this, we're actually going to show the VM for this assignment and add the role of contributor to this resource group. The next thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to add an extension inside of the virtual machine. Now, AZ VM extension, you can do a lot of stuff with it. You can add Active Directory like I'm doing. You can add software installations. You can add a Docker container. It's really powerful. For our case, we just want to make sure that it's set up for Azure Active Directory user to log in. So with this extension, we're basically selecting the publisher, which is Active Directory, and the name of the extension, which is AAD Login for Windows, the resource group, which of course we have up here, and the VM name. Now, once we have that set, we're actually going to do another role assignment, and this role assignment is for the user. And in order to basically get the proper scope for this, meaning we're going to scope it to the virtual machine itself once it's been created. We're creating this VM path. And this VM path is very similar to this AZ VM show. So we're getting the VM path. And when we go to assign this role, we're assigning the role of virtual machine administrator login, which exists inside of Azure in an AAD environment by default. And then we're assigning it the user, which is going to be their domain email address. And then the scope of that is within the virtual machine itself. So once we've got that role assignment done, the last two things we're going to be doing is we're actually going to be running some more PowerShell scripts. But we're actually going to be running them inside of the virtual machine once it's created. And in order to do that, really to run any commands or to do PowerShell, Bash, you can do a lot of stuff with this. You run AZVM run command and you invoke it. And then the command ID is going to be specific to the environment that you're running this in. So for us, we're going to be running PowerShell scripts, like I said. So the command ID is run PowerShell script. And again, you can go look at the reference documentation for run command, and you can see all the command IDs that are available to invoke. So we're going to use PowerShell. We're giving it the name of the VM, and then we're giving it the resource group that VM exists in. And then the last two pieces are the actual PowerShell script, and then the parameters that are going to be used inside of that script. Now this first one, and I'm using this in both of them, but this basically starts out a PowerShell script, and then you're telling it that it can expect two parameters coming in, both of which are going to be a string, argument 1 and argument 2. And then this is the actual command that we're going to be running. And what this command is going to do is it's going to add the Azure AD user to the remote desktop users local group within the virtual machine. So as an admin, I don't have to log in and set it manually. So net local group, and then the actual group is going to be remote desktop users, and the person that we're going to be adding is the Azure AD username. Now, one thing I want you to keep in mind here is you see how we're doing single quotes on most of these, but we're doing double quotes here. That's because we're actually adding in the username variable inside of this string. The way PowerShell works is single quotes, it's going to take exactly what you give it. It's basically going to spit out the string. So if these were single quotes, it would spit out arg2 equals Azure AD \username. But because we're using double quotes, it's actually going to interpolate it and pull in the variable. So it'll do Azure AD, in this case, right, user email at domain.com. So now that we've got the user added to the remote desktop group, there's one more thing we want to do, and this was for our use case. It may not apply to you, but again, you can do as many of these PowerShell scripts as you need to do when you're running or automating this process. This last PowerShell script, again, we're passing in two parameters, both string. And what we're doing is we're basically going into the registry and we're updating the RDP settings to turn off network level authentication. And in our experience, in a lot of cases, that causes issues with people being blocked or not being able to log in properly. It is an add a layer of security on remote desktop, but for us, we're turning it off so that our users can get access and log in properly. So to update the registry, we're basically doing a set-item property with the path of the first argument and the name of the second argument, and we're setting it to a value of 0, which basically means turning it off, right? So the first parameter is the registry location of this RDP setting, and then the second parameter is the name within that registry location. And then again, we're setting the value to 0, which sets it to off. So this is an example of how you can extend your PowerShell script to work not just for the admin of the machine, but for users in your environment, especially if you don't want them to have to remember another username and password, which is, one extra username or password is really one extra too many. So in this case, they can just use their normal login. And of course, once this is created, you would go into to Windows and pull down the RDP file and provide it to the user. And then all I have to do is they double click on it and use their username or login, and they're in the system. They've got access to the VM as a remote user and can do what they need to do going forward. So that's going to do it for this video. Hopefully you found something useful. in this new script. I'll be adding it on GitHub gists. And I hope y'all have a great day. Bye, y'all.